right, chapter 18 is our last chapter in Night of the Spadefoot Toads by Bill Hartley. We've learned a lot about Ben. He was really guarded and upset at the beginning of the at the beginning of the book. He didn't have many friends. He was obsessed with the desert, hated where he lived, but through his adventures with his science teacher, Mrs. Tibbets, he has really learned to love where he is. He's gained friends. He even changed his research project to it. So he has grown a lot in this book. So let's see how chapter 18 ends our story. After school on Wednesday, Ben's heading into the kitchen for his snack when the phone rings. He grabs the receiver before his sister can get there. "No fair," she says. "You always get it first." He holds his hand over the mouthpiece for a second. "So, life's not fair." "I hate it when you say that," Agatha shouts. She dashes out the back door and slams it behind her. Ben turns back to the phone. Someone is chuckling. "Ben?" a voice says. "Yes?" "It's Mrs. Tibbets. Is your mother there? I'd like to speak to her." Ben hesitates. Okay. "It's nothing bad, Ben. I just need to talk to her for a minute." Ben hands the receiver to his mom, who says hi to Mrs. Tibbets. He doesn't know what to make of it when, after a minute of listening, she starts laughing. "I see," she says, looking over at Ben. "All right." She hangs up and announces, "Mrs. Tibbets is picking me up in about 15 minutes. "For what?" "She'll tell you." "But Mom!" "I'm sorry. You'll just have to wait." Ben tries to wheedle it out of her, but when he sees it's no use, he goes outside to wait. A long half-hour later, Mrs. Tibbets' station wagon pulls into the driveway. She leans over and opens the door. "Hi," Ben says as he hops in. "Hello, Ben." Mrs. Tibbets backs out of the driveway and heads down the street. Ben waits for her to say something, but she keeps her eyes on the road and her mouth shut. "Where are we going?" he finally asks. "To my house," she says. When they round the last corner, Ben sees Tabitha Turner standing beside her car in the driveway. Someone Ben hasn't seen before is next to her. "Hello, Ben," Mrs. Turner says as he and Mrs. Tibbets get out of the car. "Hi," he says. He looks from person to person, trying to get a sense of what this is all about. "I asked Gloria if she thought you'd like to come over. We've just been talking to Mr. Selby here. He's with the local land trust." Ben opens his mouth and closes it again. No one says anything for a minute. They're all looking at each other, trying to figure out who should speak first. "I've decided to sell most of the property to the land trust," Tabitha finally says. "I'm holding on to a 2-acre plot on the other side of the vernal pool, where we may put up a few houses." Ben nods, still too stunned to speak. "The Spadefoots will be all right. I thought you should know." Ben looks at Mrs. Tibbets and back at Mrs. Turner. You changed your mind?" Ben says. Mrs. Turner nods her head. "Yes, someone made me change my mind." Ben's face breaks into a huge grin. "That's great. That's really great," he says. "Thanks. Thank you so much." "You're welcome," Mrs. Turner says. "No, I mean really thanks." "And I mean you're really welcome." Mrs. Turner gets in her car, starts the motor, then rolls down the window. "One more thing, Ben. If you see the overtoad, thank her for me." "Okay," says Ben. "Maybe someone should name the trail by the pool the Overtoad Trail," Mrs. Tibbets says. Mrs. Turner looks at her sister-in-law and manages a smile. "That's a good idea," she says. The land trust man shakes Mrs. Tibbets' hand and gets in the passenger side of Mrs. Turner's car. Ben and Mrs. Tibbets wave as the car pulls away. Without a word, like they speak the same silent language, Mrs. Tibbets and Ben walk around the garage and head toward the woods. Ben feels his feet connect with the ground like he's part of it, and it's part of him. As they enter the trees, a breeze pushes the branches back and forth, showing the silvery underside of the leaves. They come closer and closer to the place where the vernal pool was, and will be again. Suddenly, Mrs. Tibbet draws in a breath and stops. "Oh my gosh," she whispers, holding an arm out in front of Ben. "What is it?" he whispers. "Look, just look." She points to the path ahead. Ben looks where she's pointing, and the hair rises on his arms. It's a rattlesnake. Crossing the path about 10 feet in front of them, sliding quietly over the dirt and leaves. Another one follows it. Ben and Mrs. Tibbets watch them until they disappear into the undergrowth. I don't believe it, Mrs. Tibbets murmurs. I don't believe it. They both stand there for a moment, barely breathing. They're surrounded by the small sounds of the woods. Far off in the distance, they can hear a car motor. Finally, Mrs. Tibbets breaks the silence. Well, she says, I guess we're just going to have to be a little more careful around here from now on. It seems that we have some new neighbors. I hope they feel at home, Ben says. I hope you do too, Ben, Mrs. Tibbets says. I do, he says. And he does, right at home. The end. All right, so those rattlesnakes that got out, they didn't know where they went. They were right there the whole time, and it seems like they are together. So maybe, remember, they were on the endangered species list, so maybe they are going to breed and have babies, and this will be a new home for them in Massachusetts. It's exciting. I really hope that you enjoy it. This is one of my favorite books to read aloud. Yeah. So I hope you enjoyed. You can go online, look up some more information about vernal pools if you're interested. But that was it for Night of the Spadefoot Toads.